Left 4 Dead is one of the most iconic franchises in all of gaming, despite only having 2 mainline titles, both released over 10 years and 2 entire console generations ago. But its influence over the industry has been massive, and you can still see echoes of that familiar gameplay loop in countless co-op games to this day. But what is it about Left 4 Dead that made it so special? And if it is so special, then why haven't we seen an official third entry yet? Well, today on Game Rant, we'll be taking a step back in time and trying to figure it out. So let's go ahead and rewind for a second back to 2008, where the original Left 4 Dead would release on PC and Xbox 360 to overwhelmingly positive reception. The simple 4-player co-op zombie game that saw you move from safe house to safe house through the different acts of fictional zombie flicks was an instant classic. So instant, in fact, that it spawned a sequel barely a year later, which initially was met with some criticism and even boycotts. But upon release, players saw a massive improvement both graphically and gameplay-wise, and that, along with the promise to upkeep both titles simultaneously, with some content even shared between them, quickly made the community change its tune. And as the years went, both titles saw tons of new content added as DLC, and even launch content from the original was added into the sequel, leading to Left 4 Dead 2 effectively operating as a definitive edition for the series. Now, many games, even critically acclaimed ones, tend to fall off after a few years, but Left 4 Dead was different somehow, with tens of thousands of daily players that has actually gone up in the last few years according to Steam charts data. But what exactly makes this game, that's so simple on the surface, have so much staying power? Well, let's start with the most simple part of the gameplay: the zombies. The combat is built upon massive hordes of regular zombies that are easy to kill, making you feel like an action hero mowing down dozens at a time. But their speed also keeps you on your toes. Plus, special infected drizzled throughout add some nice texture and uniqueness to each run, with every special infected having its own weaknesses to exploit and strengths to avoid. Not to mention the added opportunity for the most competitive among us to fight over those special infected kills, with the credits at the end tallying up exactly how much or little you contributed to ridding the world of these monsters. But what really cemented this game as one of the greatest of all time was its focus on co-op. Left 4 Dead is a game where teamwork isn't just encouraged, but required. Straying from the group will likely end in you being overrun in an instant, and those special infected that require tons of damage to be dealt with, or some that trap a player until another comes to their aid, makes this a team sport through and through. Combine all this with an active modding scene, allowing the community to make their own campaigns, and you had the recipe for an addicting experience that, despite its simple and easy to learn mechanics, always felt unique. Like every run was different in the best possible way. And like we mentioned, if you've played just about any co-op zombie game in the last decade, it becomes clear the kind of influence that Left 4 Dead has had on the genre, inspiring games like Killing Floor, Dead Island, World War Z, Vermintide, Zombie Army Trilogy. Heck, it's nearly impossible to find a zombies game these days that doesn't feature their own version of at least one of Left 4 Dead's special infected. But given its status in the genre, why wasn't there ever a Left 4 Dead 3? Well, beyond the obvious Valve never makes trilogies trope, reportedly there was a bit of rockiness between the developer Turtle Rock and publisher Valve that resulted in Turtle Rock going independent back in 2010, while Valve retained the rights to the Left 4 Dead brand. So, despite Turtle Rock actually coming back in a smaller capacity to work on DLC for the game, you had the developers severed from the IP. However, over a decade later, Turtle Rock would actually circle back to the Left 4 Dead formula, with their spiritual successor, Back 4 Blood. But unfortunately, even though it received generally favorable reviews, it just never reached mainstream audiences to the same degree. On a personal note, I actually played a ton of Back 4 Blood back when it released, and while at times it's almost surprising that Valve hasn't issued a cease and desist, given how similar the core mechanics are, something about its new engine, or the fact that we've had over 10 years of evolution on this core through other games, just made it feel a bit off, like it was missing its character. Nowadays, part of the charm of Left 4 Dead is the jankiness. I mean, sure, it doesn't look great, and there's no ADS, mantle, or sprint button, but that's okay. Its simplicity is what makes it work. But the problem is that games have evolved since then. If you went and put out a AAA game now where you had to crouch jump to get up a knee-high step, it'd be touted as an unfinished mess of a game. But if that's the case, then why are there nearly 25,000 people playing a decade-and-a-half-old PC game right now as I record this? Surely it can't all be nostalgia, right? Or maybe it's just proof that when it comes to game design, sometimes the simpler, the better. But what do you guys think? Are you still playing Left 4 Dead, or holding out hope for a third one after all these years? Let us know down below, and thank you so much for watching.